If you're just replacing porn with masturbation, have you really fixed the root issue that drove you to porn to begin with? Welcome back.
All right, gentlemen. Back at it. Back again. Welcome to today's episode of the Porn to Purpose podcast, brothers. Coming to you live here today from P2P Studios.
Cross-country studios, somewhere in the cloud. This is being recorded and consolidated.
Yes, sir.
But from the mountains of Appalachia down to the low country swampland of South Carolina.
Wow. How poetic. Yes. Yes, indeed, brothers. Welcome. We're happy to have you with us here today. Your hosts, Matt Sinkovich, Jaden Smith, showing up here
we're
for
partners because we use the same barber shop.
We got the same barbershop. We got the same haircut. We got the same look.
We use the same barbershop. That's the connection. And the porn addiction. That's also the connection.
So, brothers, today we're going to dig into a conversation. And it's a topic. It's a question that a lot of men ask themselves. I know it's a question I've asked myself many times. And that is, can I still masturbate if I'm not looking at porn? That's right. And an easy answer is, I would say, yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want. But I think what we get to take a look at here is, what is the underlying programming or need that's actually driving the behavior? Like, yeah, maybe we've omitted the pornography, but is the behavior still healthy? And is it healthy for us?
Didn't we do an episode a couple weeks ago? I remember the episode, the Substitution Trap.
Yes.
Right? It's like, if you're just replacing porn with masturbation, have you really fixed the root issue that drove you to porn to begin with?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So maybe you're finding yourselves in this situation, brothers. You've quit the porn, right? Maybe you haven't been viewing videos, looking at the sites, doing the scrolling, but you're still masturbating, and you're asking yourself, like, hey, is this a problem? And I've often said this, and I always kind of offered this in the early days of the boot camp. I think there can be a healthy relationship with masturbation. But I think it's really important to take a look at, as I mentioned, what's really driving the behavior, right?
Yeah.
Is it a safe outlet? Is there a middle ground? Is there a healthier option, right? Or is it something we just continue to go to? So today we're going to cut through the confusion, and we're going to get to the heart of this, and we're going to get to what's really going on in your mind, your masculinity, and your mission. Because
we also we have to throw in here also, Matt, we have we all know if you masturbate, you're going to go blind, or
that's right,
you're going to grow hair on your toes, or whatever we were told growing up.
Absolutely. I do remember a kid in high school that said, if whenever someone squints their eyes a lot, that means they look at a lot of porn. So I used to be watchful of the squinters. But the bottom line here, guys, is just because you're not watching porn, it doesn't mean you're free from the compulsive behavior. Okay. So let's go ahead and dig into this a little bit here. So what I think the story that maybe some men get stuck in, maybe you can relate to this, guys, is that if there's no porn, right, it doesn't really count. Right? Maybe they say, hey, it's just a release, right? I'm not using porn, so it's clean, right? And I do agree with that to some degree. I know I feel better masturbating without porn. There's definitely a different level of the experience, or it feels healthier to me. But I think that can be an excuse.
I think one of the reasons why is, like, if we're not consuming porn, then we're not participating in that industry. We're not feeding that beast that really does destroy lives. Performers' lives get destroyed. It is, consumers' lives get destroyed. Feeding the demand of that industry by consuming porn only ends badly at every level. So when we take that industry out, then it's like we're not feeding the demand of an industry that literally destroys people's lives.
Yep. And to that point, another story that men tell themselves is like, hey, I'd rather do this, right, than kind of fall back into these old behaviors. But the problem that I see oftentimes is on the surface, it still is the same behavior, right? We're not using the stimulation of porn, but it's the behavior hasn't changed, just kind of been rebranded. You're still outsourcing intimacy to fantasy, or acting in, as we call it, and you're still reinforcing the need for escape, right? And so if you're still hiding, escaping, fantasizing, then you're still in the cycle, honestly.
You've changed one unhealthy coping mechanism for another unhealthy coping mechanism.
Absolutely. Or just modified it maybe slightly. Yeah. Yeah. You want to take the next piece?
So one of the reasons why we're bringing, and guys, if you listen to this is, pun intended, a touchy subject. Couldn't resist. Had to throw a dad joke in there, right? It's a touchy subject because, I mean, I was raised, Matt and I, we were both raised in the church, going to church, being in youth group. I was in youth ministry, and I remember having conversations about masturbation with the guys at youth group. Because let's be honest, if you're a guy, it's just a matter of time before you discover masturbation. It's going to happen at some point in your life. There's no way to not discover what it is. But it's very closely tied to the shame, guilt, fear of sex and pornography. That's how I was programmed with it. And so many feelings of shame, guilt, fear surrounding masturbation, tied into my porn use, tied into my shame around sexuality. Just such a compound message. So hear us very clearly, brother. We are not trying to add any shame to the conversation. We're not trying to add any guilt to the conversation. We've all been carrying enough of that our entire lives. The reality is, honestly, I don't care if you masturbate or not. Whatever term you use, jerk off, jack off, wank, whatever your term is, whether you're doing that or not, what matters is why. That's what matters. Because with masturbation, right, we do get a huge dopamine hit. We get this flood.
Yeah.
It feels good. One of my favorite jokes, I forget where I heard this, but like, how do you tell if a man masturbates? You pull down his pants. If he has a penis, he masturbates. There you go. Simple test, right? Every guy does this. It's just part of being a guy. But if you're using it as a coping mechanism for life, you're missing out. You're running into this glass ceiling of personal growth and masculine development that's seriously hindering you. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. Let me get back to my notes. Right? So with masturbation, right, those very similar, I don't want to say exactly the same dopamine pathways get hit as when we're using porn, because porn is super sensory. It is perfection in 4K, perfect lighting, perfect bodies, perfect people, perfect acting. Okay, let's be honest. The acting kind of sucks sometimes. It's not that great. But you know what I'm talking about. The dopamine pathways for masturbation hit very similar pathways in our brain. And we can train our body. I mean, honestly, I've read from I've followed some sex therapists online, healthy sexuality. One of the things they talk about, like if you're having sexual dysfunction, one thing you can do is stop masturbating, because it programs your body to engage with sex in a way that is different than actual sex with another human being. It's not the same. You can rewire your programming with masturbation the same way you can with porn. Most of the time, with masturbation. I don't want to say all the time, talking absolutes, but we use masturbation to retreat from reality, like Matt was talking, escapism. We're using it as a fantasy to manage our pain, avoid dealing with what we need to deal with in life. And we got your video back, Matt. You're retreating into fantasy where it feels safe, where you feel like you're in control, but it's not reality. Whether it's Instagram, just your highlight reel from Playboy or Pornhub or YouTube or just your imagination, your brain has trouble telling the difference from just replaying a highlight reel or scrolling Instagram versus just typing in pornhub.com and going there.
Right.
So I want you to what I want you to hear in this piece is it's not what you're looking at. It's about how you're using your body to numb what you don't want to feel.
Right.
Right. It's not about the screen. It's not about that. It's about what's going on in your soul. And I recognize that can be a very fine line in this conversation. But it's a conversation that we need to have if we're really going to grow into purpose, into freedom, into strength and power, strength and stability, peace and power, freedom and something, freedom and fortune, instead of shame and sadness, grief and I can't think of anything else I can't do the alliteration anymore. My alliteration brain is tapped out.
It was a pretty good run, I gotta say. So guys, let's talk a little bit about like what does freedom actually look like, right? Maybe we've talked about how, at one point maybe I thought I was finding freedom because I wasn't just using porn anymore and I was just masturbating, right? But let's talk about like what freedom really looks like, right? Like what is the objective? What is really the potential? What is really possible for us? So maybe you're showing up to this conversation, or maybe you're listening to this episode, right? Because you're wanting to live life, more present, more powerful, more in control, but you find yourself still fantasizing, right? You're using your body like a stress release valve, and you're still sneaking release to avoid tension, which has the potential to create disconnect, in all aspects of your life, particularly oftentimes with our intimate life. So it's not true freedom, what we find is that sobriety is about true behavioral change. Recovery is about identity change, and freedom is about finding true peace, purpose, and power in your body. Not just the absence of a website. Right?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the dailiness of life and my own journey, where learning how, one, I was using porn as a pain pill to cope with the pain of life. And I just experienced some pain. Today is the first day of school. Today's the first day of school down here in South Carolina, and just walked my daughter home from school. She started 5th grade, and first day of school, kind of chaotic. And she was prickly on the way home, prickly, like doesn't want to talk. How's your day? Fine. Right. And I know she needs probably an hour to decompress from school, but still there was kind of an emotional punch that happened on the walk home. I'm like, I don't feel good. My daughter doesn't want to talk to me about her day. And I think to my life several years ago where that pain would have festered, and it would have contributed to my addiction. At some point, the pain would build up and it'd be like, I can't handle this pain anymore. I got to go take my pill. The same thing can happen with masturbation, where it's like, this pain starts to stack up. And instead of handling it healthily, in a healthy way, figuring out what it is we really need, we just, instead of the porn pill, we take the wanking pill, the masturbation pill, to manage the pain. But then again, we still have to deal with any feelings of guilt, fear, shame that come in after that. So now I know my daughter needs an hour, nothing personal. She's upset. She probably had a great day at school, but I get to walk home with her. And in that 7 minutes, she is, it's hot. It's humid outside. It's tough, but I know I don't have to do anything here. I can manage this pain very peacefully, very powerfully, without needing to go to a coping mechanism.
Yep.
It's a big difference.
Yep. So I think what we want to, the point I'd like to emphasize is that I think there can be a potentially a healthy place for masturbation in our lives. But I think it's really important to recognize that just because we're not using porn anymore and maybe masturbation is still present, I don't think we're necessarily home free. I think really looking at what's going on underneath the surface, and that's what I'd love to just talk a little bit about here today.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions, guys, to like frame this up for yourself. Is this habit still owning me, or is it building me? Right? Is it making me feel healthier, happier, like a better version of myself? Maybe more like the version of myself that I want to be. Is this a compulsive habit that I maybe told myself I'm not going to masturbate today, or hey, I'm going to take some time off or give myself a break, and I find myself going back to it, or maybe masturbating at maybe various times throughout the day when we weren't intending to, or maybe just to manage stress, right? Am I still, to that point, am I still going to masturbation for the same reasons I went to porn? For coping, for escaping, for numbing, for fantasizing, right? So if you find that you're still in isolation, in hiding, in fantasy, avoiding emotions around your relationship with masturbation, then you're likely still in the old system. And the invitation here today, Yaden set this up well, I think, here at the beginning of the conversation, to say that, hey, we've all been programmed with enough shame. And I know for me, there was a strong association around sexuality and masturbation as a kid. And I carried that. And I think I'm still working through a lot of that today as an adult, right? So we want to really get clear that we're not here to demonize or chastise or add any additional shame around masturbation. I think I would suggest that there can be a potential healthy relationship with it. But I think taking an honest look at it, noticing what's behind the impulse or the action. One of the ideas I love to offer guys, early on in their porn recovery journey is like, if you're going to use porn, okay, go ahead and make that choice if you really feel like you want to and need to, but at least give yourself the gift of pausing for a minute, kind of 4-rack formula style, and noticing what else is present. Okay, am I tired? Am I anxious? Am I feeling a little lonely? Am I feeling a little disconnected? So be honest about what's actually behind the impulse or the action. And I would say the greater offering here would be the offering of like what were the tools and the skills that we're learning inside the Liberation Boot Camp, like learning to develop the emotional capacity to actually sit with and be present with these emotions, impulses, and urges, which are kind of behind the behavior. Can we sit with as Yaden mentioned, the pain or the hurt or the frustration or the sadness or the disconnect? Can we sit with that emotionally? Right? Can we learn to articulate what's actually going on for us? Can we learn to process it in healthy ways? And ultimately, can we learn to find and learn to grow to become men who are able to get the healthy connection that we're actually needing, maybe through a healthy, loving sexual connection relationship, right, with our partners or whomever, right? Or maybe we're just learning to get those needs met in healthy ways. We're learning to be there for ourselves. We're learning to take a nap when we need a nap. We're learning to take a break when we need a break, right? And to me, that's the ultimate invitation here in this community, is learning to become men who don't need to default to masturbation escape, but can learn to actually be with what's present and learn to meet these needs in healthy, productive ways.
Yeah. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah.
I don't think masturbation is evil.
Yeah.
Don't think it's sinful. It's part of life. I don't think sex is evil. I don't think there's anything wrong with sex. But if you use it incorrectly, there are consequences. Now, porn, I will say categorically, I don't have anything good to say about porn. I think the industry is evil. It ruins people's lives. But just like, and let's be honest, at your after hours business networking event, somebody's talking about their coping mechanism, which is going to the gym 5 hours a day and how they can't survive if they do that. That's an unhealthy that's a coping mechanism gone too far. That's unhealthy, but it's socially accepted. You're not going to show up at the networking event saying, yeah, I have to masturbate 4 times a day or I can't function. That's right. Kind of socially unaccepted.
Right.
Right. But I would kind of put masturbation in that same category where it's not evil inherently, but you can use it to reprogram and rewire yourself that is not in your best interest. To have a very unhealthy relationship with it. You can have an unhealthy relationship with the gym. You can have an unhealthy relationship with eating healthy even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's a very fine line we're walking on this conversation, because I don't want any man to finish this episode and like, oh my God, now I feel like crap. I feel guilty and shameful and afraid and bad about myself. No, man. We've all been there. We all have our coping mechanisms that are not bad, but we take them to an extreme. And that's all this conversation is. Are you using masturbation as a coping mechanism for life? If you are, there are better ways. If you're using it as a coping mechanism for every part of life, you're holding yourself back. Pun not intended. But so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but dig deep into the why of this. For yourself, because the freedom that you can create in your own life by developing healthy habits for coping with the pain of life is amazing.
Yep.
You can show up with more peace, show up with more power, show up with more strength, show up elevated in every area of your life.
Absolutely. So, brothers, if this conversation is hitting home today, again, the invitation here is nope. And masturbation is not inherently wrong or bad. That's definitely not the message here, but an invitation to look beneath the surface, invitation to look at what else is there, right? And maybe you're still actively using porn. Maybe you're actively masturbating a lot. Maybe there's some compulsive stuff still going on. You haven't been able to quit. You haven't been able to shift or change the behavior. If that's you, brothers, in this conversation, if this podcast, if what we're doing here inside the Porn to Purpose community hits home, then we want to invite you to come check us out further. Join us inside the Porn to Purpose Facebook group. Jump on to our website, www.pørn-free.com. Check out what we're up to. Schedule a call with myself or Yeadon. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Learn more about where you're at. Learn more about what you're struggling with. Learn more about where you want to go, and see if there's a way that we can help you. We'd love to explore that with you.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right, brothers. And on that note, peace and power.
Thanks for being here today, brothers. We love you wherever you are in the world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. We are
Yes,
Noble Men.
Noble Men.
Bye-bye.